Well, well, Rocky Roadsters, another year has come and gone.
Another year. The first year.
The first year. Well, it's been another year too.
Happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary.
Oh, I was about to run away with that one. Yes. How wild.
1 year since release.
Whole darn year.
What a year it's been, my gosh. We have learned so much.
Mm.
We've been through so much. Personally and podcastly. So here we are to share more and to celebrate with y'all about changes in our personal life, changes in our professional life, and podcast life and where we're going. So today in our episode, we are going to share one pit and one peak of the podcast year, one pit and one peak of our personal years, and our goals for the next year. So thank you to our listeners who have supported us and have listened every week for the last year. We're super grateful for you. And thanks for those that have recently joined and are hanging out with us. It's just been fun. It's been a fun year. It's been a hobby for us. Mm-hmm. And we've had quite a rocky road of a year trying to get ourselves situated, but we have done it. And we are still clunking through and getting there.
Listen, I think we've replaced some parts that were clunkier, and we're figuring a couple things out. We're still generally like, listen, we're humble people. Like, we have by no means figured this whole thing out. But I think in some ways we've improved some things. For example, it doesn't take us 20 minutes to say hello now.
Right. Only about
the first episode we recorded, I think we recorded our hello about 45 times.
Probably. Also, when we started with podcasts, we've released every other week. So we have moved up to every week as well.
Yes. It's been 52 weeks and we only have 30. This is now episode 34. So it is not quite weekly. We did a season and then we decided that why wait a couple weeks to record or to release other things. And so now weekly work sometimes is really stressful others. But as far as a listener experience, let us know how weekly has gone. Sometimes it's a guest episode. Sometimes it's an us episode. We're trying to get our voices out there a little bit more, for sure. We're also trying to develop what we want our voices to be. And we started this because we wanted to talk to other people. And we wanted to hear the stories of other people. And so sometimes we feel like our voices cloud that a little bit, but also we've heard that our voices help to augment that a little bit. So we're here for you. Yes, we're here for us because it's fun and it's interesting and we love talking to the people that we talk to. But as far as listener experience, I mean, what works? What doesn't work? It helps if we hear from you. We have heard from a couple people every single week, which is pretty amazing, that we hear people say, oh my gosh, the episode's late today. Is everything okay? I'm like, okay, yes. Sorry. I realize that you're waiting on this to listen to it on your morning commute. But it's just been, wow, I kind of can't believe it's been a whole year.
Yeah.
Because it's been a year and a half since we started production.
Pretty much, yeah. Also, too, when we started, we didn't do online interviews. Everything was done in person with people. That has since changed, too, where we rarely have in person. We still have a few scheduled coming up in the next couple months, but most of our stuff is virtual now. So call us lazy or call us good time management skills.
Resourceful. I think it's resourceful.
Resourceful. There you go. That's a good way to put it.
I also want to know what in person with not with people would look like, because you said in person with people, in person with dogs.
Yeah. Ziva.
Cows.
Arthur.
Zivita.
Right. Wow. What a podcast episode that'd be. Super short. 30 seconds long. So you can kick us off, or you can, what do they call it? Start your engine, like a little rocky road car. Every time we talk about the rocky road, I think about the little red car emoji, because that's what I put next to a lot of it.
We still have this dream that we're going to ride around in a little red car. if we go on tour, when we go on tour, and talk to everybody and talk to people and meet everybody
Yeah.
in a little
Somebody
red
can drive
car
the big tour bus behind us and we can drive in the little red car.
for sure. Tour bus, trailer, whatever it is. We get the cute one, little meep meep horn.
Yeah. And stop at like random gas stations to fill up and buy junk food and taquitos and
Blech.
gas station 7-Eleven coffee. Gross. Speaking of coffee, so
Yes.
the peak for me this past year personally is I opened a little mobile coffee trailer. So
Yesterday.
yesterday was my opening day. Today we are recording, so it was great, wonderful, and actually a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, but still super fun. And it was great because somebody asked me, "Are you nervous? Is it okay?" Right in the beginning of the day. And I said, "I'm not nervous. I've done harder things in my life."
Mm.
And
Yeah,
so
that's huge.
I think as far as my Rocky Road journey, this is a fun little plateau, but yet a little hill to climb. So I feel like I'm kind of going up one of those San Francisco super windy roads because it's like going
Hmm.
uphill, but it's kind of fun at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm not digging
So,
myself out of a hole. I'm starting to build and climb over a
mhm.
hill, mountain. I don't know what you would call it.
Well, I don't think it's a plateau because a plateau is flat.
It's
There's
flat.
no landscape.
Right.
Just you kind of get up there and then it's like, okay, what next? Yeah,
Yeah, so
you're
I
on a
don't know
little bit
what
of
to call
climb.
it. I guess we'll see what happens.
Hmm.
But it is exciting. It is
Yeah.
very busy. And so my brain has been on that a lot recently.
Hmm.
But you can find me on Instagram, Battleground Coffee Company. And so that
Hmm.
is my peak of the year. And
Hmm.
that just
Well,
happened because it was
you,
actually a really hard year for me. But we'll get to that
yeah.
later. So your
I'm
turn.
curious though. You said that it was harder than you thought it was. What is something that was unexpectedly difficult? Like something that just came out of the blue that was like, "Oh, I didn't expect this to be hard. I thought this was going to go smoothly."
I think when I wanted to do the trailer originally, well, I wanted to do a coffee truck. That's my dream, to do a truck, like a drivable truck.
Mm-hmm.
And until that happens with the trailer, I have limited space and I have limited options. So in a food truck, you would have an inline water unit or something, big, huge water tanks. So I have to figure out how to get all my water to and from. And when you make a drink that is made out of water, you need a
Mm-hmm.
lot of it. Some of the things that I thought would be a little bit easier as well. I think when I first started, I didn't think about doing iced coffee. So ice has been difficult. Water, frozen water. That's been harder to figure out how to do that. And just in general, um, like the health food department, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, as a business owner, there's things that nobody ever realizes, like insurance and how to
Mm-hmm.
figure out a POS system. And that's not
Mm-hmm.
POS is in what we think of, but it's like point of sale.
I was gonna
How
say
to-
people are like POS, what? Yeah, the like the little thing you swipe your card in and that takes the orders and like that's a whole every restaurant or
right.
food service or even not food service actually, like
Retail.
everything has to have retail, has to have that
Yeah.
point of service. It's
Yeah.
the self-checkout. It's all of
Yeah.
that different stuff.
So it's not a piece of beep, it's just a POS system. So stuff like that that I didn't really go into thinking about or I thought would
Yeah.
be easier. That not that I didn't think about it, but some of
Mhm.
it I feel like is just more complicated than it needs to be. But
Mm.
ideally, in a perfect world, on my dream, this is definitely a step towards the big dream. But the big dream is to have a little coffee truck that drives and has a big
Mhm.
ice machine in it and a big refrigerator in it and a commercial espresso machine in it and plays 80s music as I just drive up and down the suburban streets of Pennsylvania and sell coffee to all of our stay-at-home moms and anybody that works from home, which is a lot of the population now.
Mhm.
So, your turn.
Do you want my peak or my pit?
We're on the peaks. Let's
We're
do
on
it.
the peaks. I feel like I would be questioned if I didn't say that my peak was my wedding.
I thought the
Even though
same thing.
it feels so long ago because as soon as it was over, I was also a maid of honor at another friend's wedding 6 weeks later, and then I had, like, it was all this stuff, and my wedding day was quite literally perfect. Um, but I feel like last year, and I didn't realize it until like March maybe, that last year was just so incredibly bonkers, zany. I wonder if I would have enjoyed my whole wedding experience even more if it was isolated away from all of those different experiences. Not that I'm not
Hmm.
happy that it was a wild year. It was a really great year. Two of my
Sure.
best friends got married. One of my best college friends got married. I was in a wedding, maid of honor in a wedding, bachelorette parties,
Bridal
bridal
showers.
showers. Oh, all of a sudden my best friend's pregnant, and they're like all this stuff. There's just
That's
so
not
much.
me, the best friend. It's a different one.
No. And she has now since had her baby. She is perfect. I'm going to go see her again in a couple of days, and I cannot wait to smell her head. But yeah, there's just all this stuff that happened all at the same time. And I feel like it's very me to be immersed in other people's happiness at the same time as organizing my own, if that makes
Right.
sense. If you
Yeah,
know
but
me, it
you
makes
also
sense.
had, I understand what you're saying though, because you had bridal showers a week, 2 weeks before and after your
Hmm.
own wedding,
Hmm.
and baby
It was
showers that you knew
fun.
you were
Like,
planning.
it was a
Sure.
blast, and it was just like wild. And if I don't have something to focus on, if I don't have something to plan, if I don't have someone else's kind of joy to fulfill, like I'm currently um planning a little bit of a secret event with someone, and it's super exciting. And like I can't even tell you what it is actually. It doesn't have anything to do with you, but I can't like it's yeah. But it's just one of those
With
things
the
where I'm like,
plot
"Oh my gosh, this
thickens.
is happening. This is exciting." Like I just like am moving forward with plans of other things. And I think that anybody planning a wedding, I'm gonna pray so hard for you because it's hard. And I think that to jump into pits, like planning my wedding and some of the dynamics that came along with it was also kind of the pit. Um,
Yeah.
uh, yeah. So I I'm actually celebrating this week. It's 6 months since my wedding. But we also, and this is not like openly public, but it's like people pretty much know. But Cody and I eloped in June
Hmm.
before my wedding, and that pissed a lot of people off. And some people were like, cool, sounds good. We don't care. Happy you're happy. And then some people were livid. So that whole dynamic of it um, just kind of put a damper on a couple of things.
Hmm.
Additionally, I have a lot of family and I have a lot of people who kind of weighed in on that whole process. And um, the wedding process was just really hard on me. And part of that was like recognizing some of the personality traits of people that are really close to me and understanding that those personality traits are just not long-term good relationships. And
Hmm.
so like that's part of the pit is that I've let go of some relationships, and some have been made better, some have been reconciled, some have like some are brand new. I've met people since the wedding and they don't even know about that whole crap. But
Hmm.
they're yeah, there's just like big, stressful, fun events also come with a little bit of a cost. And you
Yeah.
really honestly see people in ways that they don't intend to be seen
Hmm.
when that all happens. And so it's been really interesting. And I think like a point of growth for me is that I'm really, really, really tired of being the bigger person, but sometimes that's what I need to be because, and Mandy, you and I talk about this quite a lot, is that there are
Hmm.
some people who have emotional intelligence, there are some people who have self awareness, and there are some people who do not, and they don't
Hmm.
realize that their lack of emotional intelligence and their lack of emotional awareness is negatively affecting a relationship.
Yeah.
So if they have their eyes open to a slit and my eyes are wide open, it is kind of my responsibility to make up the difference because I
Hmm.
can't expect someone to flap their eyes open if it's just not anatomically possible. Right? That's what I keep this is what
Sure.
how I kind of keep thinking of it. It's like if I'm best friends with a snake and their eyes only open a slit, how can I expect it to flap open? No, I just have to understand that we see the world differently,
Hmm.
and it's a blessing and a curse to kind of be able to understand that about other people.
Right.
Yeah. Super nerd moment. We've both gotten really into the Enneagram too. And so I think that's also helped me to not that I type every single person that I see, but it's helped me to understand people a little bit better. And like, I'm pretty sure I
Sure.
typed what Cody is, and that kind of makes me understand other things. And I've typed a couple of my other friends, and they've like confirmed that with me. And it's just a lot of the conversations that we have kind of make sense in a bigger
Mm-hmm.
picture now because we all handle
Sure.
things in such different ways. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, oh my gosh, this is such a me thing to say too, but like in essence, my pit is also my peak because I'm also learning more about the people around me. So
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like I'm just on a roller
Yeah.
coaster.
Well, and I think, I mean, sure, but isn't that what the Rocky Road is all about? It's like going up and
Precisely.
down and loop de loops and
I am
spinny circles.
looping.
A little loopy with the sangria. Anyway, so yeah, but I think it's important to point out what you're saying as far as cheers, as far as an event can be happy and sad, positive and negative. And we've talked
Hmm.
about this a lot too, where it can just change your life. So obviously
Yeah.
you got married, which is amazing. And now every time I try to type your last name, it types random. So, um,
I
but
love
I
that.
have, not that I type your last name often, but,
Every
but
day.
yeah, all the time when I talk about you. Anyway, so yeah, so that is like a great thing, but then it's really hard on
Mhm.
relationships. And so for me,
Mhm.
one of going into my pit of the year, I had a pretty
Mhm.
big falling out with a previous church, and it was a very painful experience and a very
Mhm.
eye opening experience. Really difficult. More to come on that in the next couple of weeks. We have little sneak peek. We have a little series on like church and church hurt, but church like good things from church and bad things from church, basically. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, it was really hard for me. And so my pit of the year, just in all honesty, was battling depression. And I have never battled
Mhm.
that in my life. And so literally feeling like I was glued to the couch or just crying for upwards of 3 hours. And I'm not even joking about that. And
Mhm.
not being able to stop and not even knowing why I'm still crying. And then luckily I've had great people in my life to support me through that, but that was a new experience for me. So that was a really dark place to be in that I just felt really worthless and I didn't feel like my life was really going anywhere. I felt like
Mhm.
I kind of failed, felt like I was a late bloomer in a lot of ways. But realizing that I'm only 31 and um, going from there and then being able to kind of come out of this year now opening up a small coffee business and
Mhm.
our 1 year anniversary of the podcast has been just really good. And so I think it just kind of checks one of those boxes now where um, have you ever suffered from depression? I can say yes, and just helps me relate to more people. But going through an experience like that, like your wedding, like the church
Mhm.
experience that I went through, was very difficult. And you learn a lot, but it can turn into something really beautiful and exciting. Um,
Mhm.
and so I think that's just a great way to look at it. So your pit and your peak were both your wedding and the process around it. And my pit and my peak were revolving around just hurt from a church. And
Mhm.
then that led me down the path of opening a coffee trailer. And, but also I learned what depression felt like because I never actually had it. So, what a year. What a year that it's been.
Mm. I I'm reflecting on some of the days that I knew were really hard for you,
Mm-hmm.
and then looking at some of the more recent days where there's so much hope. And I think that should
Yeah.
be a beacon for some people who are listening who feel like there's no hope.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to create your own hope. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you have to take something that you think is a crazy, wild, what if we idea
Yeah.
and say, no, we will. Here we
Yeah.
go. We're doing it. Um,
I
I
think
just,
with that too, I remember days of this depression and it was frustrating for me because I would just be laying on my couch or in my bed and I would just think to myself, I can't live my life like this, but I
mm,
don't know what to do. And
mm,
I had no idea what to do. Sometimes I had the fact that I got my child to school in the morning and then came back and slept half the day was so sad. Like I
Mm,
felt so worthless of a human being that I couldn't hold a 40-hour-a-week job because I was just struggling with a lot. Um, but then, yeah, having that turn, I just remember laying there being like, this has to stop. And I don't know how, but I'm going to
mhm.
figure it out. And this past weekend, I opened my coffee trailer. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. Do you remember that moment where things shifted? Was there a specific, or was it more like a cumulative or a
Um,
culmination of things?
I think it was, I remember the day that my dad said, let's do this. And he just picked me up and we bought a coffee trailer. Well,
Mhm.
we bought an empty trailer that day. And I
I
remember
remember that
thinking,
day
I
too, and
remember
I thought it was hilarious because
it
you're
was
like, "Hey,
really
I bought
fun.
a trailer today." I was like, "You
Yeah.
what?"
Right. And I think my dad had mentioned to me, he had said something like, "Oh, if you don't use this for the coffee trailer, I got a good race car trailer." Because my dad was a race car driver and he
Yep.
restores them and has them. And so he kind of was like happy about it regardless, because he knew one way or the other it would work out. And so I think even
Mhm.
the process of building it and installing electric and counters and the sink and just things like that in it, I didn't really think that it was a reality. So it was a slow flame that started to spark, I would say.
Mhm.
I remember that day that it happened. It was 2 days after Christmas that we went and bought it.
Mhm.
But it was just, I think one of the things for me with that specifically was I had to open my mouth and say it. I had to say,
Mhm.
I have this dream. This is what I want to do. And
Mhm.
a handful of people got on board and were able to support me, whether that was through their talents, their abilities, their resources, their money, whatever. And it just kind of started falling, like started piecing together. And there was always a part of me that was waiting for the other shoe to drop and for the whole thing to fall apart, because that's what happened with a lot of things in my life. And so
Mhm.
the fact that I was able to launch and start it, I don't know where I'll be in 5 years. I don't know where I'm going to be in 6 months, but it was something that was a dream that did come true. So,
Mhm.
um, but I had to talk about it. So I think
Mhm.
even in the midst of the depression, there were days where I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be around people. I don't want to, nothing. But I remember somebody telling me during that, they were like, I don't dislike you. I dislike your depression. And it was
Mhm.
like a moment for me that was like, that makes sense, because I knew it
Mhm.
didn't feel like myself. Like who I was didn't feel that way.
Yeah.
And I think I got affirmation on that when I saw my high school choir director this past weekend at our
Mhm.
opening day. And she was like, "You're the same person as they were." And last time I saw you, I was 18. That was 15 years ago. And you're like, "Yeah, you're still the same person." And I'm like,
That's so
"What?" Like
funny.
I've been to hell and back in 15 years,
There's been a
multiple
lot.
times now. And
Yeah.
like, she's still like, "Yeah, you're still the same person in there." So it was really nice to hear. But
Yeah. That's something to speak to about the core of our personalities and the core of our
absolutely.
existence, and that, like, yes, a lot can happen, and thankfully a lot of people grow in positive ways from high school to adulthood.
Right.
Some people don't, a lot of people do, but
Hmm.
being able to say this is the core of your personality and having that string
Yeah.
between the energy, not necessarily the behaviors, not necessarily the success or the, the
Hmm.
drawbacks, anything like that, but just the string of the energy of your personality, I think is just a consistent thread.
Yeah. And I think it's just that little nugget of joy
Mm,
that for whatever I know that's in me, that there's like, and I've seen it. Obviously, I remember it growing up more so, and it has been the here and there over these last 10 years of my life, of like
mhm,
this little nugget of like, that's joy, and
mhm,
that's real joy. And that free spirited side of me that gets suppressed and pushed down so easily when things get hard.
mhm.
Um, And so to have that kind of coming back a little bit moments, obviously they're not, it's not like every day is like that. But you know, you even said with me like last week or whatever, you're like, oh, you're manic, like you're excited, you're like on this high because of everything going on.
I was like, I can't handle you right now. You need to focus.
Where it was
Calm.
so funny
Okay.
because it was like 3 months ago, I would text you and be like, yeah, I just got done crying for 2 hours. And like,
Yeah.
it's so different of the year of what's happened over the year.
Mhm.
And that's personally, like, let alone the podcast and everything that we've been doing here,
Yeah.
and all the people that we've talked to and gotten to like hear their
Mhm.
stories and stuff. And so we've had a year of stories of our own for
Yeah.
sure,
Mm.
that we'll continue to share over the next few episodes and months when you hear us more. So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, what a journey. What a rocky road.
You will not stop with the puns. You
You
will
could put
never
the
stop with the puns. And that's why we love you.
you got to do the little drum thing.
I deleted it because it was really aggressively loud. So we on the platform that we use to record, there was like all these new little buttons today, and I went through them and they were garbage, so I deleted them. But one of them was a really like it was a but I don't know if it was just me, but it really sounded like someone was just kicking a drum and dropping a cymbal. It was terrible. So you're welcome for not subjecting you to the terrible noises.
Yeah, absolutely. Although I would have kindly welcomed them.
I
So,
know. Applause, applause.
yeah, more, encore, encore. So the podcast has hit a year, and we
Mhm.
are on episode 34. We have a majority of the rest of 2023 mapped out of what we want
Just
to look like.
wild. We
Probably
planned.
half of them are already recorded. Most
Mhm,
of our guest episodes are recorded, which is very exciting.
mhm.
And if
But
you
also
have a great
bittersweet in a
story,
way.
say it again.
Also bittersweet in a way because
It is,
for
yes.
the rest of the year, I know we can record to project out to next year and who knows when
Hmm.
things will be released, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're not talking to people for the rest of the year. But that means that we talk to less people while we
Yeah.
project out.
Right. Yeah. In the beginning of this 2023 year, in January, February, we were doing 2 or 3 episodes a week, recording with people and just kind of stockpiled a lot of guest episodes. And
Mhm.
which is great because there's amazing things that people are going to continue hearing the rest of 2023. Um, and then we'll refocus again, and Kristin and I will come up with more ideas and see what we can do as we kind of iron out. So I feel like 2020, like this first podcast year, has been a year of figuring out how to do it logistically. How do
Mhm.
you write show notes? How do you post things? How do you upload? How do you record? All of that kind of stuff. And
Mhm.
then figuring out who is our audience, who's actually listening to these, and who do we want to listen to these. And we've made a couple tough decisions as far as not having certain guests, doing some interviews that we have felt that just really aren't the best to share.
Mhm.
So we've made some tough decisions. And then the goal, moving forward is to just accept people that we, as guests, not that we don't accept people, we accept everybody, but having people on our show as guests that we feel fit the mold of our audience. And we're still
Mhm.
ironing that out and maneuvering through. What do you
Mhm.
think?
I think that some of those decisions have been really tough, but there's also, as we figure things out, it's also finding our own voice. And we've had to ask for advice. Like we have a friend who gives a lot of really great podcast advice. And I was like, I just had to reach out to him and I said, this is our situation. This is my gut feeling. Are we nuts? Are we being insensitive? And he goes, no, it's your platform. It's your voice. It's who your listeners are looking for. If you feel like it's not a good match, it's not a good match. And if they're a professional, they will understand that. Just
Mm-hmm.
like if I wanted to talk on a wrestling podcast, they'd be like, no. And I would say, okay, I completely understand because I don't understand anything about what your podcast is about. Right?
How would you
Like,
just think of wrestling of all topics?
that's a great question. I have no idea, to be
I mean,
honest.
you could have at least just, I don't know, I would have thought of like sumo wrestling or something.
What would a wrestling podcast even talk about? Would they talk about like the specific? Anyway, see, exactly. This is the point. I wouldn't know where to begin on that particular platform. And
Right.
so being able to say, yes, you have a good story. However, is the story necessarily related to our avenue?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
think,
think.
and two, it's where is the person at? in their healing journey and in
Yes.
their
Yes.
storytelling ability. So we
Mhm.
definitely have people in mind that we know we will have on the podcast at some point, but either they need to work through something or they're going through something or they have to,
Mhm.
figure some things out before they're at a place where we feel that they're able to speak on their experience well.
For
And
sure.
um, so, it's going to be a fun road to travel.
The road puns. Road to travel. So where's the road heading, Amanda?
I mean, if it's in Pennsylvania, it's hitting a whole bunch of potholes. So let's
True.
hope that we've
Yes.
moved our way south, maybe, where it's not so ridiculous of road
Where the
conditions.
roads are made of crushed shells and sand.
Yeah,
Wouldn't that be
the beach
nice?
would be great.
Yes.
Honestly, just anything in the south has flat, more not huge
Mhm.
hole roads. So anyway, that was
Yeah.
ridiculous.
That's
So
so
where are we
gross.
headed? We have after this episode is released, we have categorized our episodes now into little themes. So we have certain things coming up in the next couple of months on podcasts on churches, and we have podcast series on mental health. We have a little series on foster care and adoption, and we have a series on family dynamics and child abuse.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, we have just like some really amazing guests that have shared their stories. So we have on our own, we have our own opinions about certain things, strictly opinions. We have actual data statistics on certain things that we're going to share, and just our own stories that kind of fold in through the stories of others that we've heard.
Mhm.
And there's certain things that we can and cannot relate to based on all
Mhm.
circumstances and
For sure.
situations. But just excited to have weekly episodes with us every other week, just the two of us hanging out, and then
Mhm.
having our guests kind of speak into what we're sharing about. Um,
Mhm.
that's the
There's
direction
some
that we're working on.
there's some really powerful people that we've spoken to that are doing like that. It wasn't the intention to connect with people who had a bunch of causes and who had a bunch of organizations and specific missions, but there's a couple of them coming up that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what they're doing, and it's really cool to be able to learn about those missions and to share them with other people too.
Yeah.
So that's like last week, Nicola, amazing. Like there's just certain things that are so powerful that this is what the person has dedicated their life to doing,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to give them a hug for it every single day,
Yeah.
and to be able to share their progress and
Mhm.
their soul with other
Right.
people is really
There,
humbling, and
yeah,
it's
that
really,
little
really
spark of
amazing.
joy.
Yeah.
What is it, Marie Kondo or whatever her name is, that says,
If it
"Does
doesn't
this
spark
spark
joy,
joy?" Yeah, does this spark joy? Some of these
there's a lot
people
of things.
these people find their passion and they find what works for them and they go and they run after it. And I think that's
Mhm.
really inspiring. It's very respectful towards these people that I have
Mhm.
great respect for them.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just really cool to see what's out there.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. I have a goal to make our audience more connected in the next year that we have. I'm
Hmm.
not exactly sure how or what avenue to go down to do that, but just to make, because we share these causes, these people, and you might independently go and seek them out yourself. But how cool would it be to just like be able to sit and talk with the community that we've built and to meet the people that listen every week? Because I know you're out there. There are people who have listened every single week. Love you. Thank you. Um, and there's some people who drop in. Like we look at the numbers and like they're pretty consistent. There's a clump of you who are with us the
Yeah.
whole darn way, which is pretty cool. Um, and to be able to introduce you to each other and to connect on different ways, good, bad, ugly. I think that having our community be able to connect in a different way could be pretty cool for
Yeah.
us, of course, but for you guys as well.
I agree. That'd be amazing. And our guests, um, connecting them So our 2024 projected goal is to host an event, whether that's virtual or in person. It's yet to be determined, but we want to connect you with our guests. So our listeners and our guests to have personal interactions, get to meet each other, talk, answer questions. So yeah, it's really just building our community of listeners to connect with us and then be able to connect them with our guests, which was our goal in the very, very beginning. So it's a long process to get there, but that was what we want. We want to have a pool of resources to be able to connect our guests with our listeners, really our listeners with our guests, or vice versa. So just build
Everybody
that
to
community.
everyone else.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So why
We're
not do
creating
that?
this big fun web where
Right.
there are some listeners that are guests and there are some guests that are now listeners. And that's great. And we
Yeah.
are the same thing for other shows where it's just this big web where we can all be really interconnected.
Yeah. I agree. It's just kind of like all of those overpasses that crisscross.
I think what are they called? Clover?
Oh yeah, the
Clover
clovers.
exits? Yeah.
Yes. We could call them clover groups.
They have to be 4-leaf.
That's
We're about to get
true.
real nerdy with all of these images here. It's going to happen.
All right, we'll detour and get back on the path.
We
So,
will.
happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary. I didn't get you a gift.
You are a gift.
POS.
That's so true. Thank you to all of our listeners. We are super grateful. We're still hanging out, still going strong. Some days are easier than others, but we're here to provide you with some resources, some knowledge, information, and some entertainment every week.
A giggle here and there.
There you go. Right. Exactly. So
We
follow
love
along. Speed limit 55.
ya. Bump it up to 70.
85.
Oh, deal.